A couple of announcements that I also placed in Classroom yesterday. Number one, you guys need to, you don't need to tell me that. It's fine. I feel like we've had this conversation before. We have. You need to register through AP Classroom. This is how we will register you for the AP test. This is how you did it last year if you had APHG. The instructions are placed in Stream. There is a code which I've given you. It is unique for your class. So if you have a friend in another class of mine who's like, I need to sign up for AP Classroom, let's do it together. Different code for different class. You're organized by class. When you sign up, you need to say that you are taking the AP exam because at Ballard High School, that is our requirement. SBDM policy is that all of us in AP classes take the exam. Speaking of requirements, I need those of you with the capacity for video to turn it on. Some of y'all are getting bad about this. I have a couple of you when I end class, you stay on screen for a few minutes. You know what that means? You aren't paying attention. You're just showing up for attendance. Now, I can't predict the future, but Dr. Polio said Friday that ideally we will be back in school on November 2nd in person. If you are not actively participating, you will not catch up. It ain't going to happen. There's no way you can kind of fart around for 2 months and then think you're going to turn it on in November and do a good job. It's not going to happen. So you need to think about whether this is something you're committed to doing or not. And if it's not, then in December we can drop. And some of you, it may not be your choice. Mr. Rich might give you the polite shove. Devontae, I saw your lovely face. I need to see it again. Go ahead and turn that camera on, my man. That's good. Yes. There we go. See, once I know you have the capacity for it, there's really no reason for it not to be on. No. And I know a couple of you told me about it, but for the most part, it's just you don't want to. I don't really care what you want. That's not really my concern. So that is something you need to do. It won't take you more than 2 minutes. It's really simple. You go to that website, you put in the code, you put in your email address you want to be contacted at, and then you say you're taking the exam. That's all you got to do. It's very, very simple. If you have any questions, you can let me know, but it is very, very simple. I need you to do it. On the schedule I posted a couple weeks ago for this time period, I mistakenly forgot to put a reading quiz this week. I have rectified that. So you have a quiz for today's reading that is due Wednesday. So I did post that. If you are someone who is a calendar person, I apologize that I did not put it in the calendar, but we have one a week. So, and plus you want them because most of y'all are getting 2 out of 2 every time. So that ensures you have a good grade. So I would encourage you to follow that. I've updated IC, so every assignment I've received is currently in Infinite Campus. If you have something is missing, you need to take care of that. My policy is this. At the end of the 6 weeks, no more late work. The 6 weeks ends October the 6th. That is next Tuesday after the break. So let me say that again. No late work after the end of the 6 weeks. So if you have anything marked as missing, your last chance to do it is over break this upcoming weekend. After that, done. Everybody understand me? There's no flexibility there. Well, Mr. Rich, what about? Done. Questions about that? Shouldn't be any because it's pretty simple. If anything is marked as missing, do it. If you have any questions about what to do, ask me. Other than that, done. All right? That's the expectation. So, if you have any work, you need to get it completed. Today, you were supposed to have turned in to me the 5 multiple choice and 1 short answer that you should have done over the weekend. I expect that to be posted. I'm going to try to start grading that. I am going to go over that short answer very soon. Whenever I go over it, it could be I go over it on Wednesday. I don't know. It depends on how far we get today. If I go over it on Wednesday and you haven't turned it in, you get a 0 and you can't get it back. Once I go over something in class, the book is closed on that. If you follow the schedule I give you, you won't have a problem. If you choose to be late on things, that's your choice. And right now I'm trying to be flexible. But when we come back in person instruction, every time there's a late assignment, there's a penalty of a point per day. And so if it's a 2-point assignment, it's 2 days late, you're getting a 0. There's nothing you can do about it because it's 1 day late, 1 point, 2 days late, 2 points, 0. So this whole like, well, I'll turn it in when I feel like it ain't going to happen much longer. So understand that that's the expectation. This is AP. This is not a worksheet from 6th grade geography class. I expect things to be turned in. If you have any trouble and need help with it, I expect you to ask. If you don't, that's on you. You're old enough to do those things without me having to do them for you. At least that's my expectation. Okay. I think there's one other thing I was wanting to mention. Let me double check my list here and make sure there's not something else I needed to talk about. Nope, that's it. That's what we needed to do. So let's start by talking about the Aztecs and the Incas. I know there was on the schedule a European activity. I'm getting rid of that because I just don't want to do it. I want to give more time to the essay. So I'm going to give more time to essay writing. I'm going to put my whiteboard on. Again, you have a Venn diagram that you can utilize if you want to from Classroom Stream. If you don't want to utilize it, that's your choice. Again, you decide how you want to do those things. But I will go over the big picture items for the Americas. In the Americas, in time period 1, there are 2 major civilizations of which we need to know. Oh, whoops, I shared from the wrong screen. Whoops, I need to share from my whiteboard. Sorry, just a second. Sorry. Every once in a while, I forget how to use technology. Okay. You may have heard of the Maya. The Maya are a big civilization, but they are gone by 1200. So we do not study them. In a normal year where I had time to get into a little period 0, we discussed the Maya, their calendar and all that good stuff. But we do not have time for the Maya. So if you're wondering, you've heard of them. They are pre-1200, so they're out. The 2 that we focus on are the Aztecs and the Incas. I always say the Aztec and Inca because the Aztec are located in what today is Mexico, so they're more northern. The Inca are located in South America, so they are southern. I always organize things both in my head and out loud, west to east and north to south. So when I say things, I usually go geographically west to east or north to south when I tell you multiple civilizations. That way there's never a doubt. If you have to answer a question about this geography, you know that this one is northern of that one. So if you think about the way I teach you things, that is how I teach them to you. Because actually the Incas are older. They exist before the Aztecs. And I can understand people that say Incas and Aztecs because the Incas were first. But for me, I do it geographically. That's just how my brain works. You can decide to do it differently if you'd like. But for me, that's how I choose to do it. So the Aztecs are located in today, what is Mexico? Their name for themselves is the Mexica. Aztecs is the Spanish name after they are conquered. So that is where we get the word Mexico from. Now, both of these civilizations will be conquered by the Spanish, but that is in time period 2. That is not this time period. In time period 1, both are strong, powerful, large, wealthy empires in their various geographic regions. Where would you say the Aztecs are located primarily? How would you describe them? I know I said Mexico, but what does that mean? What region?
Central America.
Central, yeah, or you could say Southern North America. Technically, Mexico is also part of North America. So they're located in Central America / Southern North America. Either one would work. It's a pretty dry place. It's not a desert, but it's not a rich, lush land either. So obviously one of their major concerns is getting enough water and enough food for their people, which is something everyone has to deal with. They fight a lot of battles. They are an empire, so they conquer people. They have a huge army. At their height, before the Spaniards arrive, their empire has 12 million people in it. 12 million! That's a lot for 500 years ago. It's a pretty big place. If I asked you one thing you know about the Aztecs, one thing you may have heard about them or is kind of their legacy, good or bad, does anyone have an answer to that question? They are renowned for one particular practice.
Isn't it human sacrifice?
It is, Jamie. And since you should have read this over the weekend, I'm glad at least one person did. Thank you. So human sacrifice. Now, all of these pre-Columbian, when we say pre-Columbian, that means before the Spanish arrived, pre-Columbian American civilizations of Central and South America, pretty much all of them have human sacrifice. The difference is the Aztec volume is much larger. They do more of it, quite significantly so. In fact, one of the main purposes of their conquest is to get victims for sacrifice rituals. Supposedly, they do tens of thousands of victims a year. That number is hard to prove. A lot of the numbers we have associated with that are from the Spanish when they arrive. But those numbers are questioned because if you just defeated a civilization, would you not want them to seem as powerful or barbaric as possible? Because then you beat a powerful civilization, you're more powerful. Or if you think they're barbarians, then you have civilized these people. It's actually a good thing you conquered them. Yes, you killed the vast majority of them, but in reality, you brought peace and civility because you're not sacrificing humans. So you're better than them. So a lot of people, myself included, have doubts about how high those numbers are of tens of thousands, but that's what the sources say. So we'll at least mention that number, even if we disagree with it. It's probably not true. All right, so their army conquers primarily for human sacrifice. They also use some of their conquered people as slaves because we don't have evidence of any of these pre-Columbian American societies having the wheel. They don't utilize the wheel, which means that when you're building huge temples, huge pyramids like the Aztecs did, what is the number one source of the labor then? If you don't have the wheel and you also don't have what we call beast of burdens, you don't have big animals you can tie yokes or carts to. Who's doing the work?
Like the men.
People.
Slaves or people.
Yeah, people. Primarily, Devontae, you're right. It's slaves. We're going to enslave people and make them do that. Because the Aztecs build huge temples. They build pyramids. And so that work is done by hand, without animal help, and without carts, because there's no wheels that we've ever found. That makes it a lot harder. Another example how you might not think about it, how the wheel influences the lives of the Aztecs. Have you ever seen a mill? M-I-L-L? With my accent, sometimes it makes it hard to see what I'm saying. A mill, it's a wheel. Usually moves along because of a body of water, a river, a stream. Do you know what the purpose of a mill is? What do they use them for?
To grind grain.
Yeah, it would turn wheels. You would put wheat in there, and the wheat would be ground by stones and turned into flour, and then you could make bread with it. Because the Aztecs don't have the wheel, they have to grind their grain by hand, which is thousands and thousands of labor hours, especially for Aztec women. That's pretty much all they did. Now, what is their primary grain in this part of the world? What is their number one crop? How do you know you're eating real Mexican food? What is it in?
Is it corn?
Corn tortilla, yeah. And flour? No. Corn, yeah, it's maize is what they call it, or we call it corn. So it's estimated that Aztec women spent 30 to 40 hours a week grinding corn by hand with mortar and pestle, like a tool that you just kind of 30 to 40 hours a week. That's a full-time job. Do you think they had other duties and responsibilities as women in this culture? Child rearing, house cleaning, cooking. Oh, yeah. So they have one full-time job alone, which is just grinding the corn. And if you know anything about corn, it's not the most soft thing. It's a lot of effort. Okay? We also know they have access to what's called cacao, which today we call chocolate. Chocolate is from this part of the world. It's from other parts of the world as well, West Africa, for example, but they have chocolate here. Now, if you have ever had authentic Hispanic chocolate from Central America, we think of chocolate as sweet. Dark chocolate's a little bitter, but it's still kind of sweet. Their chocolate was basically like dark chocolate, and they would put red peppers in it. So it's actually hot, literal hot chocolate, which is a very weird flavor because we always think of chocolate as one way. And I've actually had this before. You put it in your mouth and you taste the sweet for a half a second, and then here comes the pepper. And you're like, woo! And that is not normally how we associate with chocolate, which I think is kind of interesting. So this is a huge empire. They have a massive army. They conquer almost constantly to get sacrifice victims for their gods, which demand a lot of blood. They build huge temples, often with slave labor from their conquest. They don't have the wheel, so they're very sophisticated in many ways, but also kind of backward not having the wheel. They also don't have any beast of burden, so no large animals in this part of the world that we can use for labor. So it's almost all human labor, enslaved labor. And the last thing I want to talk about briefly, you see this word in your Venn diagram. It's the concept of a chinampa. China MPA. Again, you have a huge empire. You have a relatively dry place with not a lot of rainfall, so it's not going to be the best place to grow food. That sounds like a problem. So the Aztec engineers, and they are excellent engineers, architects, etc., they come up with a system to feed their people. So I want to show you, it's a 1 and 45-second clip. It's very short, of what a chinampa is. And if you can't quite see it, we'll describe it when you get back. This is from a series that used to be on the History Channel called Engineering and Empire. And it's all about like how different cultures built things to help their society. And so this is the signature building project of the Aztecs. To give you a little context, the Aztec capital city, where Cortez will show up in 1519, is actually built on an island in the middle of a lake. So this city is surrounded by water. So that gives you a little bit of context. You can't go see it today because eventually that lake is drained, and Mexico City today sits upon much of what used to be Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital. So most of it is kind of swallowed up by the modern city of Mexico City. All right, so I'm going to stop recording because I have to. I've realized I can't show a video clip if I'm recording. And we'll watch this clip. It's very short, 1:45 or so, and then we'll discuss it and then move on.